talks were sort of the main course of this session. I like to think of my talk as the dessert. I'm not going to ask you to do much more than just look at some pictures and speculate wildly with them. So as Maggie said, we've been working on a project to repeat some aerial photos, oblique aerial photos from a Super Cup that were taken in 1976. We did a bunch of them last year. I'd like to continue doing some of this. And I'm just going to show you a small subset of the ones we've done here today. And this work was funded by the Central Alaska Network. Wasn't an expensive project, but there was some cost associated with scanning photos and some flight time to retake these photos. And so basically, just to go through what we've done, we received a gift of 2,000 slides from Dr. Fred Dean, who's an emeritus professor of wildlife biology at UAF. He had taken these photos as part of a mapping project in 1976, and they were basically Kodachrome slides. And that project eventually resulted in the first land cover map of the park that was done by Debbie Hebner. We scanned these slides at pretty high resolution and then looked and sorted through them on the computer to look at ones where we could actually think that we could repeat them, because if you're just looking down at a piece of ground with no horizon or lake or river or something like that, it's hard to think that you can get back there and retake it. So we kind of did a first cut that way. We prepared printed maps. Fred was very thorough and complete in documenting where these photos were on the ground, so it allowed us to go to the GIS and put digitized points where these photos were taken, and then sort of develop some plans for how we might redo them. And that was done in the winter of 2004 or 5. And then we did some helicopter flights to retake them, which can be quite tricky because you're working in 3 dimensions, and so trying to accurately redo the photos so that you can interpret it takes some time and getting used to. And then ongoing, we've been looking at these photos to see what they tell us. And I'd like to acknowledge Fred Dean, without whom we couldn't have done any of this. He took all those original photos. Claudia Rector helped with the slide scanning and the GIS work. Jenna Ham assisted with preparing some of these prints and maps of the photo locations. Of course, George Hook, the helicopter pilot, was invaluable, and having him really interested in the project helped us because of the tricks required to redo those. Doug Wilder, Jane Bryant, James Walton, and Chad Holtz came along on some of the, we had as many cameras in the ship as we could at the time to retake these photos. And Jennifer Allen and the Denali fire crew, including Eric Olson and Charlie Raynar, went up and retook some of the photos I'll show you from the western part of the park. So some of the observed changes were preliminarily expansion of spruce across the landscape, sometimes pretty dramatic, given that it's a 29-year interval. In thawed terrain, particularly such as river terraces and well-drained slopes. Colonization of open, gravelly areas of river bars that in 76 were quite open, resulting in a net gain of vegetated surface area in those places. A trend towards some pond shrinking and contraction of the area occupied by open water. And invasion of open wetland sites, peaty places by woody vegetation. So just to go through some of these photos, this is an area in the Jenny Creek watershed, not so far to the west and the south here. And so you can see in 1976, maybe there were small seedlings in this area, but you can see can we lower the lights a little bit maybe? Is that visible? Mm-hmm. It just helped with the contrast. Obviously the dark triangles are white spruce that are invading this gravelly river terrace kind of area. Really very few visible in 76, whereas quite a few visible in 2005. This is an area south of the Park Road on the Savage River, and you can notice some of the scalloping, the river terrace there. You can match that up with the next photo and just look at the distribution of trees, and you can see that there's been quite a colonization of this area by spruce in a very short period of time. And I should add that there's not really evidence that this is a secondary succession process, because you don't see any stumps, dead trees, or anything like that that indicates that there were trees here before they were removed and they're coming back. It's more of a directional thing. This is an area near Big Creek, which is west of the Teclanica River. South-facing bluff that you see with the poplar and aspen, and then a thawed river bar. And in 2005, again, you can see how it's filled in along the river bar, and then those south-facing slopes. You've got much bigger polygons of white spruce, and it's all white spruce in these areas. This is the terrace east of the upper sanctuary river, looking to the northeast. And again, you'll see the same view in 2005, and again, pretty much expanding out from these small corridors of spruce on thawed terrain to occupy a greater part of the landscape. And again, it's a fairly short period of time you're seeing that. I would say that in areas that still have good solid frozen permafrost, you don't really see this invasion of spruce. This terrace here is in Eagle Gorge on the McKinley River, and if you look at the picture, this is a 76, if you look at the picture, it's basically identical. I've pretty much looked at this at a pretty fine scale, and I don't really see any differences here in this pretty solidly frozen black spruce area. So again, it's not even across the landscape that you're seeing spruce come in, and it's mostly white spruce, at least that I've noticed. And here's just a few shots of floodplains and the establishment of vegetation on them. This is the Teclanica River looking south, and that's Big Creek coming in there, so quite open in the 76 photo. And a lot of poplar and willow has been established. Not something that's particularly surprising. Floodplain succession happens all over Alaska. What was surprising to me as I did this was every single pair of floodplain photos showed this or a similar pattern of net establishment of vegetation. I expected to see areas of erosion, areas of establishment, but it was very surprising over and over again seeing the same thing. And it's mostly poplars and willows. Again, this is the Savage River. The Savage Box is off to the right there. And again, a lot of greenness, a lot of this whole channel here. This area was all established. I'll try to go through these fairly quickly, but again, a net establishment over this view of vegetation during that period. The Sanctuary River floodplain, that's the Park Road in the upper left. This is the 76 photo. You notice a bunch of open, more gravelly areas in this view, and then another considerable greening of the floodplain environment. And this is a stream, a very small stream coming off the western flanks of the Alaska Range out way beyond the McKinley River. So it's a long, long way from these other places. And Jennifer took this photo. I was amazed that she could match it up because it's really out in the middle of nowhere with not a lot of terrain. But I'm glad she did because this is a different order stream, a different environment, but you have the same thing. You can see that track, but it's entirely vegetated in that period. So basically, I feel pretty, this isn't a random sample or anything like that, but since I saw it over and over and over again, I can't show you all those pictures, there's definitely a net establishment in that landscape position. I think part of the reason is a rebound from a huge flood event that happened in interior Alaska in 1967. This is a gauge from the USGS at Chino River, but the one for the Teclanica shows basically the exactly the same thing, and many of the interior streams show the same thing. And so I think at least in part, you're seeing a situation in 76. We had a bunch of bare areas that were either scoured or eroded by that event, and probably at least some of this is a rebound from that very large scale event, which I think has a lot of implications for wildlife and other things. So these are some pond photos. This is on the ridge west above Wonder Lake, small little kettle in glacial sediment up there in 76. And this is it in 2005. Again, you can see a lot of establishment of tall shrubs. Interesting, the waters, the angle as you can see is slightly different, but the water is about the same. But it was bare, open sediment in 76 where there's a lot of shrubs and vegetation last year. This is on continuous permafrost, at least I think so, in the Toklat Basin, a small pond. And I just asked you to notice the channel to the peninsula of lake above there is quite open. in this picture. And here you can see, so right here is what I was talking about. This had been open initially. So you've got a lot of vegetation establishment here, at least some, and probably from a lowering of the lake level and ingrowing, I would imagine. This is a peat wetland south of Wonder Lake. Pretty well established wetland complex in '76. And here it is in 2005. So these are all spruce and poplar. We were actually doing some sampling in this area for the vegetation monitoring program this summer, and got to visit at least the general area. But a lot of establishment in what was an open wet meadow. This is a lake way out in the Minchumina Basin lowlands, west of the Kantishna Hills. Got, obviously it's an old lake that's dried up considerably and gone through a lot of lake succession, but it kind of hit the fast forward button in the last 29 years, and we've got several meter tall spruce trees, white spruce all through here. Can't really explain it, I'm just showing you pictures. So some of the ecological consequences of some of these changes. Sorry, I'm going through this very quickly, but I wanted to show as many pictures as I could, because there's actually quite a few more. So obviously there's fundamental changes in the patterns and tempo of primary productivity when you go from a wetland system to an upland system, for instance, or from a shrub tundra to an incipient forest. Obviously primary productivity, decomposition, ecosystem, nutrient cycling are all going to change in those areas. Local microclimates, as Terry Chapin noted yesterday, are going to change once you establish trees that are going to block snow movement across the landscape in the winter. Wind patterns change, snow distribution, service albedo. It's going to be a darker landscape, probably capture more heat. Soil temperature dynamics under the forest canopy, and that would result in a continuing alteration of the trajectory of change, I would imagine, through time. And obviously habitat structure. You have different animals in the tundra than you have in the forest. You have different animals in upland vegetation than you do in wetlands. If these trends are general, depending on how general they are and how widespread they are, you're going to see more and more of that kind of change. Major changes in the quality and spatial arrangement of food for herbivores, obviously. And then another of the various changes you might see are landscape distribution of fuels changing, therefore fire regimes changing, patterns of wildfire, frequency of wildfire. Phenology is another thing that I would imagine change considerably, particularly when you go from a wetland to an upland situation. And so there's just a few things that I think, this sort of anecdotal kind of study can show you. That's it.